Got it out of our face today, we're windy today.
Well, yeah, next, well, yeah, we got.
Yeah, we just started the new house Friday.
November one's gonna be the giant.
Yep.
That's
Kind of
gonna be
wicked, but
crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it wasn't too bad, 11 noonish or something,
seems to
it was
last a
about
long
one.
time.
Yeah. Yep.
There's no rain because everything was wet.
Oh, that's,
I come here every
no,
day.
that's, no, that's like the Columbus, I gotta try, you gotta do straight tickets.
Maybe I'm sitting next to the chief.
You don't.
Is that where you work? Did you work for,
60%.
one of the deeds guys you used to work for?
And then Mark took over. She just tried to get it.
Well, it depends on who has to run again.
That's who you worked for all those years? He yeah, before that.
I call this meeting to order, and is there anyone in particular that would like to do the invocation?
I'm ready, willing, and able.
Go ahead.
Heavenly Father, we just come before you tonight, we ask you, Lord, just to be with us and to give us wisdom and Lord, just to do your will. And we just thank you for today. We thank you for every person in this room and the sound of my voice. And we just pray that you'd be with us. In Jesus' name, amen.
And if you would join me, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you do a roll call for us, Tracy?
Carrie.
Here.
Nola. Here. Christie. Here. Jeffrey.
Here.
Renee. Here. Tracy here. Lee.
Next, we have the approval of the agenda. Anyone would like to make a motion?
Make that motion.
Motion by Carrie, do we have support?
Support.
Support by Nola, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the approval of the past meeting minutes.
Make the motion to approve the past meeting minutes.
We have a motion by Carrie, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Renee, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the treasurer's report. And if you would, Christie?
You notice that we closed the CDs down and that monies went into the Michigan class funds. So it built up the general fund and the Michigan class, and also I transferred the Michigan, the fire operating, some of that. With that transfer with the interest rate, we made $1,600 this past month in interest on those transfers. Also, I included in the packet later on this week, I printed out just to put it on record all the delinquent personal property taxes in our township. They go back to 2017 just for you to view. I can only go back to 2017, everything is off the books as of 2016. And there's a few there that I'm diligently seeking money. So that's all.
Perfect, thank you. And do we have any other questions? All right, and I had, in the packet, I ended up reversing the treasurer's report and the paying the bills, which I believe is the first time I've done that. So next we are on to paying the bills.
Make the motion to pay the bills.
Motion by Karen,
Support.
support by Nola. Any discussion?
So you wanna do the bills first? Did we do a motion for the?
Treasurer's report, we just put it up.
Okay.
Lawyer approved, lawyer recommended, actually. Not approved through the board of the treasurer's report.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion for the paying of bills. Do we have a second? Support by Nola. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie.
Yes.
Nola.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Christie. Yes. Tracy, yes. Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have the fire department report, if you would, chief.
83 calls for service last month, still allowing 10 minutes. squad is in paint right now, opening, fingers crossed, end of the month, beginning of next month. As of this month, we are already 35 calls into the month already, and it's only the 11th day of the month. And we have our annual physicals this Wednesday. The Vice Chair will be here to do all the employees' physicals, as I've asked to have that done every year. And then I have one thing for request for consideration, but that'll be later in the agenda. That's all I have.
Perfect, thank you. Next, we have the Planning Commission reports, and Lee's excused, he's out sick. So I will read this. This is from June 20th, 2022, SU 22-04 and SPR 22-02 for Nugent Sand, where the agenda items. Request is for 2 new buildings. One will be an office to support ongoing operations and transition from their Norton facility. Another will be a storage workshop building. After discussion and talking with Anton Colan of Nugent Sand, both items were motioned for approval and approved. Next, we have our first public comment. Anyone would like to comment on anything on the agenda, up to 3 minutes, feel free to come up to the lectern and state your name and let us know what you think. All right. There will be a second public comment at the end, and anyone can go off on anything they would like. Next, we have our first decision item, which is firefighter resignation. Unfortunate things happen in people's lives, and this is due to changes in her full-time job. Would you like to add anything, Chief, or?
Thank her for her service, and I just ask that you accept it with regret.
Yes, I agree. So do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve with regret, of course, to accept the resignation of firefighter Samantha Tracy.
We have the motion by Carrie, support by Noah, and any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And we do appreciate the service. The firefighters work extremely hard. It's easy to be reminded of that if you hang out with them at all. Next, we have the 2370 Duff Road bid opening. And a lot of times we'll receive the bid near the end of the day on the last day. But in this case, we did not receive any. And so we set the minimum for $200,000, and so we have to decide which way we want it to go on this. If we want to stay there, if we want to lower it, if we want to do our own advertisements, if we want to do a request for proposals for getting a realtor, or other ideas. And there was enough interest, because we've been talking about it for a while. We had people inquire from Chicago, people from Detroit, people from the area, that I thought, well, once it came up, there would be interested parties. But there was more interest before it was up for sale than after it was up for sale.
Well, it's been a short time, it's only been 1 month.
It has been, so we could also.
We're also looking at the economy the way it is right now. A lot of people, big ticket items, people are holding on to their money a little bit longer. I think we should just hang on for a little bit, give it another month.
How long has it been? I mean, I know we just now listed it, but we've been holding on to this property for several decades. So
1959.
yeah, so I think we can go along.
Yeah, and I mean, what we can do, and it's within my discretionary bounds, we can run a little bit more in local newspapers and that type of thing.
I think that'd be advisable.
Yeah,
Advertise it, let people know.
let people know more, you know. Yeah, we can do that. All right, so we do not need a motion on that. Next, we have property acquisition, and this is one of those things that I would have preferred to have as a discussion, but because of the time frame that we got it within, we do have to make some sort of decision. And basically, there are properties that are taken back on delinquent taxes, and we get a list of them. The state has the first option on acquiring them, but the township also has an option on acquiring them for the amount that the taxes are delinquent for. Now, there is a relatively recent law that if someone puts in a type of claim on the property, then in those cases, you have to pay at least double the SED amount, and if there's an amount over that, then part of it goes back to them. So those get a little more complex, and we don't know if there's claims on these. And so we're looking for if the township wants to acquire, or attempt to acquire, because we have to put in the bid, any of these properties, all of these properties, none of these properties.
It's very tall order. I'm kind of wondering personally, first of all, was this on public record? Is this on Dalton Township, if somebody was accessing?
Well, like the packet is publicly available on the
The
website.
agenda, but was this specifically? I'm just wondering.
The acquiring the properties?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Just wondering.
Yeah, the same thing you got emailed from me is what's on the website.
Okay. Do we have extra money to be purchasing?
We did not budget anything for acquiring these properties. And the basic philosophy, as far as I can tell, is sometimes there's some sort of plan for a property. But in general, some people think that the township should acquire property to try to connect pieces, and then it's easier to sell off a piece like that. I'm not sure if that's actually true. I think that's a decent theory. But how it actually works in practicality is sometimes it goes that way, and sometimes they just get hung up and owned for a long time, and so it's a little bit clunkier.
Seems like a really big decision to just make on a meeting. So I'm a little concerned that, I don't know if we really have enough information to make an educated decision on this.
Yeah.
Is this something that we could, I know by the
No,
sounds of
a
it,
non-decision is a decision, because we won't have enough time.
August 8th is the date, so.
Right.
So that's why I'm just wondering if we could possibly have a special meeting, just to talk, just to discuss this, because this sounds like it's gonna be, there's a lot of meat here to consider.
Especially since we haven't budgeted this.
Right.
This is, and we're trying to dig ourselves out of a hole
Right.
and not put ourselves back into a hole and acquiring more property that might, so.
Right, I mean, the direction I would go is I just wouldn't acquire it. It seems reasonable to me. You know, that's how I look. But, we can have, if you guys want to have a special meeting, we can have a special meeting over it.
What does the rest of the board think? Is this something that, is anybody even, or do you want to just move on?
For me, if they were connected to some of our other smaller properties where we could combine it to sell off, but I'm not up to speed on how many we have left. I know we've been kind of selling them off. I wouldn't want to acquire them if they were, because a lot of these are small pieces in, I think Lakewood Club, and I wouldn't want a random one.
Right.
If it didn't,
And-
sell something else.
I mean, our property sales through the board have not necessarily been smooth. It's not like we've been denying people buying them. And so if someone did one of these tax sales and acquired a small piece in a neighboring township property, then they could request it from us. We have a policy for that. So I don't think I don't see the upside.
Okay. That's right. All right.
Well, what I'll do then, I'll make a motion to not acquire any of these properties.
I'll second that.
Motion by me, second by Carrie. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Renee,
Agreed. Yes.
Tracy, yes, Christie,
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have the electrical inspector contract. And you guys probably remember last year, we had the contracts had expired and we looked at them and turned them evergreen, so we didn't have, because they had been signed in 2018 and expired in 2020. And so that is not ideal. I don't want expired contract. We've cleared up a number of expired contracts. And so in this case, this was brought up that it might be our amount, 70%, might be lower than some of the surrounding areas. Now, when I looked into some of the surrounding areas, it's actually a decent mix. Some places go with flat rates, some places go with percentage, and some places are higher than us. Some places even have a building inspector on salary. And so there's a bit of a mix in how they do it. Currently, the building inspector gets paid 80% of the permit fees. The trades get paid 70%. And the idea is not for the township to accumulate necessarily a huge amount of money into those specific accounts. And there's a decent amount of money that's been growing in there. spend a little bit on the building office, but still minor, because it has to be kept to those things. And so it seems reasonable to me to increase the trades up to the 80% and match the building inspector. And then I separated them by contract, obviously.
I make the motion to increase electrical inspector compensation to 8% of permit fees and authorize fees executed in the contract.
As of what date?
Oh, I did not include a specific date on there. Do we just want to go by the month? That'd be easiest to process?
Next month,
Yeah. we can do next month.
August 1st?
August 1st.
All right, motion by Carrie, do we have a support?
Support.
Support by Nola, any other discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Tracy, yes, Renee,
No.
Christie.
No.
Motion passes. Next, we have the same situation, but now for the electrical inspector and mechanical and plumbing inspector are the same, so we have a single contract with him, and otherwise it's the same.
I make the motion to increase the mechanical plumbing inspector compensation to 8%, permit fees and authorizes to execute the contract as of August 1st, 2022.
Motion by Carrie, do we have a second?
I'll support it.
Support by Nola, any other discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Tracy, yes, Jeffrey,
Yes.
Christie,
No.
Renee,
No.
Motion passes. Next, we have the building inspector contract, and this came up because I was looking at those. And we did the evergreen, turn into evergreen because of the expired in 2020 contract. And it turns out in 2018, there were 2 contracts signed with the building inspector. And I'm not sure exactly why they were kept separate, but there was the one that is the contract that we've seen before. And then there was one, and there was the only important thing, and that I could tell, was this idea of 5% of the trades. And that contract signed in 2018 didn't have an expiration, so it's still in effect now. But it seems a little clunky to have 2 separate contracts and this one just for this item being separate. And so this would just combine it, so it ends up being a single contract instead of 2 contracts with the building inspector. Otherwise, it doesn't change anything.
I make the motion to add, quote, "The township shall pay the building official 5% of the building permit fees collected by the trades for the scheduling and coordination of those trades each month and authorized to be executed as a contract official."
The date doesn't matter because it's already in effect.
Contract, so there we go.
We have a motion by Carrie, support by Tracy. Any other discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Tracy, yes, Renee,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have the Berry Junction Trail Commission alternate, and the next 3 items are alternates. And obviously, because we've changed the clerk and treasurer, which I had set up as the alternates before, which we passed, then this would change. So I'm on the Berry Junction Trail Commission, but if I ended up in the hospital or whatever it may be, it would be nice to have someone to be able to go to the meeting and still be a full standing voting member. And so that's what this does, and I talked to Christie and Tracy about these positions.
I'll make a motion to add Christie Miles as an alternate to the Berry Junction Trail Commission.
I'll support.
Motion by Tracy, support by Carrie. Any other discussion on the board? Hearing none. Roll call.
Tracy, yes, Carrie,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Nola,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Christie.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have the same type of situation, but with the Water System Policy Board alternate.
Make the motion to add Tracy Damaris as an alternate to water system policy.
Second that.
Motion by Carrie, second by Renee. Any other discussion on the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Tracy, yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have the Wastewater Management Committee alternate. Same situation.
Make the motion to add Tracy Damaris as an alternate to wastewater management committee.
Motion by Carrie,
Support.
second by Nola. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Tracy, yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have the Visa accounts for the next few items. And on this, it's been coming to the board, updating the names on the bank accounts. All right, we've been doing that, obviously. Credit card goes through the bank in some fashion. But those motions and those meeting minutes won't be accepted by Visa for changing the names on there. And there are names from years ago. And so the first thing we want to, and none of the current names. And so the first thing we want to do is remove all of the names from the account so that there's no one on there that shouldn't be on there.
I make the motion to remove all the names from the Visa account.
I'll second that.
Motion by Carrie, support by Renee. Any discussion among the board?
May I speak?
Yes?
Are you talking about the township account?
Correct.
That's a fair one. I'm still on the other card. So you have two accounts. There are two accounts. This was the hang-up. This was the only reason I got the initials, was they would tell me the initials of the people, because I'm a listed agent on the other account.
He has a card that.
If you say all accounts, then my card is invalid.
I just said from the Visa account, and I was thinking of the township one.
Right, but I just want to make sure
It's
verbally,
It's not
we
stated.
have
So
two
what
accounts.
about inactive employees, removing
That or
all inactive?
either account, doesn't matter. Just make sure the township account versus the other account.
Do we need to change anything with the fire account? Or is it good the way it is?
I don't know if it was on it, except myself.
I thought they were all one account.
No, but two. Because they would give me information about mine, but they would not give me information about yours.
Right.
The only reason they would give me the initials and I could list the people, who those people were, based on district. But they
Right.
didn't tell me anything else. That's where it came in. We had to have all these people. I
Right.
said, my account is fine, but that, if we didn't discuss it, we're talking about your account.
All right. Yeah,
Make
we
sure
want
the
you on
verbiage,
that.
we don't say we
And-
close it, because Visa closes everything.
Correct. Yeah, and so we want, and we're gonna have motions to put other people on these accounts, but I was thinking of the township account because Alan already had access to the fire account. And so I think we could adjust motion to either say from the township Visa account, still in general, or delinquent employees. Either way,
Need to alter that? Go for it.
yeah, which way are you altering it here?
Make the motion to remove all names from the township Visa account.
Yep.
All right, so motion by Carrie, is that also the support?
Seconded.
That's
Renee's
support
on
by
it.
Renee. Yep, all right.
Thank you for
Any other discussion among the
You're
board?
welcome. Thank you for speaking.
Yeah, thank you for that, it was a good catch.
Yeah, good catch.
Mhm.
All right, roll call vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Nola,
Yes.
Christie,
Yes.
Tracy, yes, Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. And so on these next 4 items, because they're all votes on the same type of thing, if we want to read them as the township Visa account, should
Yep.
work as clarification on all these two.
May I speak?
Yes,
Or do we want to make sure we
Do we
just
need to-
do both, and then we're really covered?
that's true.
Because I don't know, except for myself, and I can get the access, but you guys pay the bill.
Yeah.
So
So do we want
I would say all Visa accounts. in my
all Visa accounts?
opinion. That way they can access both. Whichever.
Yep, I think that's reasonable, and there is a designation here as a business officer versus what we'll see next as an authorized speaker. A business officer can adjust amounts, they can do more on that account, whereas an authorized speaker can get information. And so that's why the motions read differently, because there's 2 different levels of access.
Makes sense.
So I make the motion to add Tracy Demars as a business office to all Visa accounts.
Support.
Motion by Carrie, support by Noah, any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie,
Yes.
Nola,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes,
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Christie,
Yes.
Tracy, yes.
motion passes. Next, we have the deputy clerk on the Visa account.
As the authorized speaker.
Correct, it's the same situation, but instead of business officer, it's authorized speaker.
Make the motion to add Lexi Stibbets as an authorized speaker to all Visa account. Second.
Motion by Nola, second by Renee, any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Nola,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes, ma'am.
Carrie,
Yes.
Tracy, yes, Christie,
Yes.
Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, same situation, just with the treasurer.
I make the motion to add Christie Biles as a business officer to all Visa accounts.
Support.
Motion by Tracy, support by Nola. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Tracy, yes. Nola.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Carrie.
Yes.
Christie.
Yes.
Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, same situation, Deputy Treasurer.
I make a motion to add Andrea Dennis as an authorized speaker to all these accounts. I'll second that.
Motion by Nola, second by Renee. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Nola.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Carrie.
Yes.
Christie.
Yes.
Tracy. Yes. Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have the North Lake Weed Assessment, and we obviously have the 4 different lakes that get treated, and over the last couple of years, those special assessments have been updated. When looking at these, I looked at last year's amounts, and we had spent just over $3,000 on the treatments for North Lake, but we looked at the amounts in the accounts I looked with Christie and Tracy, and it has a large amount, a little over $18,000. And so that would be years and years of treatment. There's nothing else that can be done with those funds. There's no point in accumulating a large amount in those funds. We want some buffer, right? We don't want to run it right at the line, but there's no reason to have that amount. And so these, well, this one, the first 3 are written up as 0 because it's unnecessary.
I make the motion to charge the weed treatment special assessment for North Lake at a rate of $0 for this year.
Second.
Motion by Carrie, second by Renee. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Nola.
Yes.
Tracy, yes. Jeffrey.
Yes.
Christie.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next, we have the same situation at Westlake. The number is different because weed treatment was higher. It was a little over $8,000, and the fund balance was about $22,000. I'm just under, I believe I included the number in here somewhere.
I make a motion to charge the weed treatment special assessment for Westlake at a rate of 0 for this year. Second.
Motion by Nola, second by Renee. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Nola.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Carrie.
Yes.
Christie.
Yes.
Tracy, yes. Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Next, we have the same type of situation with Middle Lake, expending just over $3,000 and having a fund balance of about $20,000.
I make the motion to charge the weed treatment special assessment for Middle Lake at a rate of 0 for this year.
Support.
Motion by Renee, support by Nola. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Nola.
Yes.
Christie.
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
Tracy, yes. Jeffrey.
Yes. Motion passes. Now, Twin Lake is different. The amount on it is a little bit larger, a little over $6,000 for expenses, and the fund is the lowest. So it's a little less than $8,000, $7,900.
Larger lake.
It is, it's a larger lake, and I don't know exactly why that large amount was acquired in those other accounts, or, it wasn't necessary, obviously. And so the reason the rate is on here is $96.39 is because when the resolution was passed, that was what was projected out into the future for 2022, and so I just kept that same amount in here.
I make the motion to charge the weed treatment special assessment for Twin Lake at a rate of $96.39 for this year.
Second.
Motion by Carrie, second by Renee. Any discussion among the board? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Carrie.
Yes.
Renee.
Yes, ma'am.
Nola.
Yes.
Jeffrey.
Yes.
Christie.
Yes.
Tracy, yes.
Motion passes. Moving on to our discussion items. The first one is the M120 water project, and we talked about this before, that there was PFAS noticed in the water along 120, right, just on the north side there. And so a grant had been applied for, and it's been being looked at by the Water Policy Board. And at first, it was just going to run to the one location. It wasn't going to loop, and so there might have been a couple $1 million gap in funding because you can't allow stagnant water to be sitting in the line. It has to be looped back around. But now that full amount is going to be covered by the state, although the state and the county are still working out those numbers. And I've included in here, this is the reason the printed packets are in color, otherwise I save some ink, but this map certainly doesn't show up. And so the proposed area would be the dotted line. It goes up 120 across Tilton, down Nielsen. And basically, if it's going to be done, now is the time, otherwise the money won't be there. The state is willing to do up to 3.7 for this project, and the county's working on their professional cost estimates to see what it'll be, but it looks like it'll come out a little less than that. Which also means people going through, well, there wouldn't be the original, the first mandatory connection. Like if people signed a petition to get water extended, then there'd be a special assessment to pay for it, and there'd be a mandatory connection. So this is a different situation. If they trigger, which we're going to be seeing in the near future, if they trigger one of the things, like their well goes bad, something like that, then there would be a mandatory connection at that point if it's within 200 feet. We want to be concerned about that stuff. If people build off the road, then they don't have to. But also, because this is being paid for, this would be being paid for by the state, in that situation, when the person did the connection, they would pay the indirect connection fee, which is $3,100. Ooh, I might be thinking of sewer amounts. The indirect connection fee is less than if something were to go in initially and money wasn't coming from the state. It would be significantly more. Like the sewer, I think I'm thinking of sewer numbers. Indirect is $3,100, and direct is $6,200.
So if they hook up now, if they hook up when the water goes through, how much would they have to pay?
I believe that they're hooking up when the water is going through, it's the indirect connection fee.
But if they wait,
And if they wait, it'll be the indirect connection fee.
okay, either way, it's the indirect.
And we don't really know how much that connection is, and they really won't have a choice in it?
Well, if they lose the well, that would be triggering if their well goes bad.
Right, they won't have the mandatory connection at first, like you would if there was like a petition, right? But if it triggers one of the issues, so if their well goes bad and they have to replace it, if someone buys a plot of land and builds a new building, in one of those types of situations, a building that was within 200 feet from...
So like at the cemetery where a well has gone bad possibly? That's what you're saying, that we couldn't replace it with another well, we would have to turn around and connect to city?
If it's within 200 feet.
Would there be assessments on the front foot, or is that all, is that the grant?
Because it's being covered as a grant by the state, there wouldn't be any assessments associated with this. And you can see the star on the map is where the contamination was detected. And it's part of a bigger issue, we've been talking about it, I know I talked with Seer about it at the Water Policy Board, is that above the creek that's there, there's an old landfill, the Northside landfill, and that's leaking PFAS as well into that creek. And I've talked with Eagle about remediating that site, which would obviously be millions of dollars. And as of now, Eagle is not interested.
Is there, do we need to find out what the extent of that PFAS is?
So they've been, Eagle's been doing testing in the area. They sent out flyers to some of these surrounding places, mostly on the north side, 120. I requested that they do more. They did whatever they needed to. Sure. And so they didn't get the response rate that they hoped for. But they did detect some potential issues, but smaller in these other areas. They also drilled monitoring wells around north of that creek, around the Northside landfill, which was shut down in the 1970s, somewhere around there. I have some information on it, and detected it. So it's certainly leaking into the creek.
So if that's where it's detected at, why is it going on? Just help me to understand it. Is this where water main is already?
The blue line is where it currently exists, yeah.
Okay,
And so you have to get there.
Okay.
And at first, the state was just willing to build it going to that location.
Right.
Well, the issue with that is you have a long line, not a ton of people using it, and so now you either have to go flush this line repeatedly, and that type of stuff. That's normally what they do with sewer. But realistically, Eagle could even come back in a few years and say, you can't have it like that. You have to loop it around. You have to connect it. Apparently, the county's run into that in a different area. And then this section would be $1 million, $2 million, something like that. It would have to be paid for locally.
What about all these properties up in here? Where, I mean, like if that's where the main thing is at, but it's not really, it's just covering to that spot and not beyond it, that's kind of concerning.
It is.
Well,
Right.
if there's a problem, there's a problem.
Right. If there's a
Yeah,
problem in one
Especially
spot,
if
there's
it's
gonna be a
just
problem.
on the backside of the property there, it's back here.
Yeah, I mean, as far as PFAS is concerned, they started testing for it heavily and reducing the amounts that we're supposed to have in the water supply a few years ago. And on average, they're detecting one major contamination spot a week in the state of Michigan. And so it's everywhere. It's a much more extensive problem. I don't even think they're proposing good solutions for it, because it means it's in all of the water, which means it's in all the plants, it's in all the animals, it's in all the humans.
Sure.
Is there a reason why they went Old Orchard Lane and not connected on M120?
I do not know the reason for that. I would assume there would be
Yeah.
one, but I'm not sure. I didn't
Water
ask about that.
and their side's public lands.
I mean, I could inquire into that. I'm not sure if there's any kind of engineering issue or what there may be.
Yeah, I just ran it up with a lot of big bags.
Thoughts, questions, comments, ideas?
What exactly are we deciding?
Well, it's a discussion item, but it'll have to be passed, the Water System Policy Board, which multiple municipalities sit on it. And that and the wastewater, they're structured differently, and the Bear Junction Trail are kind of odd groups because you have multiple municipalities coming together. And so the Water System Policy Board, which sits the local municipalities here with water, and then 3 of the county commissioners, make the decisions on these types of projects. And we have to be correlated with them on our ordinances, those types of things. But, you know, in the end, we would want the township to want to move forward, especially with such an extensive project happening in the township as well.
Do we dare ask what our county commissioner opinion is?
That's up to you. You can direct the question.
Mr. Kim Sia.
I think Jeffrey nailed it pretty much. I mean, I was at the same meeting he was at, so.
Yeah, that's the basic situation, you know, and it's, do I dare bring up the deep economic concepts? You know, it's not free money, as we talked about in the one meeting, but this is a lot of the things that have been being talked about, money coming down from the feds and the states, and it's being talked about an immense amount. And to a large extent, people think it is free money, but really it's just being sourced differently. It has to be paid for in the future by someone else in some aspect like that. But we don't have a ton of roads coming from that, although we're allocating some from the ARPA, so technically that's coming from the feds. But this is one of those types of projects that people are talking about.
Okay.
Look forward to seeing it.
All right, anything else on that one? All right. Next, we have the ARPA funds. Obviously, you know, we've been discussing it for quite a while. We have one resolution passed, which includes the roads for this year, so a decent amount. And before I draw up another resolution on expending some things, I wanted to have a discussion of what those things, what we want them to
see
be.
something going towards the park. I think Davis Park especially, with the dog parking like we spoke about.
And I met with our fence guy, so Vance Brown, about getting a quote, and he's supposed to get it to me today, but I didn't get an email yet, about putting in fencing for the dog park on that part where they do the disc dogs at Beagle. So I have a quote coming on the fencing for that. And so on the parks, because we've been discussing them for a while, from the ARPA funds, because we kind of went in the direction of drawing up a grand plan, but then didn't go in that, obviously, I mean, the numbers were very large, right? They were, right. Yeah, 350. And so do we want to take this bites? Do we want to take it bites at a time? like look at a few pieces of the playground equipment to get out
I
of
think
control.
that's a good idea.
Yes.
And then like the dog park is one item.
I think that's the best way to go. This way we don't just commit everything and then go, oh, wait, what about this?
Right, and a grand plan.
As time goes on, things might come up.
And a grand plan would be nice, and I think if the organization was a business, I think that's the way I would recommend. But you basically need a decision maker to be calling the shots in fairly short amount of time as things change. And so ideally, we're bringing, from my perspective, more of that stuff to the board. And so by taking it in bites, I mean, it'll be a little clunkier, but the government is necessarily clunkier.
It is. Again, we got till 2026 to have it all.
They have it expended. 2024 has to be allocated.
We're 2022, halfway through.
Yep.
So I think,
The first chunk is already decided,
right.
Correct.
And I
Over
think
$200,000.
so that's the first chunk, and it's a lot, up 800.
It was $846, something like that.
It was over $800,000. I can't remember that exact amount. I remember the amounts that we allocated to the roads was $197,000.
So, $300,000 going to roads already, so it's like, we should do something else besides roads, and no, we need to get.
Well, I figure even if we do that, almost that same amount for roads next year, while we're sorting out some of the finances, sewer finances, some of those types of things, that allows us to keep doing construction of roads, which I think are very important.
Right.
And then the rest of the stuff, I mean, some of the things with the buildings, some of the things with the park, that need to be done. That could certainly be used.
Lawnmower, backblade, maintenance truck, I think those are all important too. I mean,
Yeah, those trucks are
those are
horrible.
important.
They are, and on that, I kind of wanted to get a feel for how extensively we want to go. We obviously don't want to shortchange things and then have things that don't work, and things that they don't have the utility, and I mean, the trucks, we replace an entire maintenance fleet of trucks if we wanted to. Or, we could go a little more conservative and we could get one nice truck that's able to plow and with a back blade.
One for now, and we'll look at it again. Hopefully, the economy will come back and get the lower rate.
Right.
I think that's very optimistic.
I'm
But it's possible.
It can
Yeah.
happen. It can happen.
And so on here, I've got maintenance trucks, lawnmower, back blade. The township roof, we'll talk about as a separate discussion item. It's a large amount, and we have a quote on that. And so those seem reasonable. Moving the transfer station leaf pile. And I was hoping to get the leaf pile is starting to encroach on where those bins are and starting to get tight for the trucks. And I want to get that taken care of. And I reached out to two places for quotes, hoping that they would be able to take the mulch, the compost that has been developed by the leaves over a long period of time, and then just move so we had more room, and then it could sit there for a long period of time. It was pointed out to me that in that case, the township might be running an illegal composting facility, if you look at it from that perspective. But we still have to get rid of the stuff. And it's a very large amount right now. And so I think in the future, it might make sense to allocate a certain amount in the budget every year to get the leaves taken somewhere else, right? So they can be composted. But as it sits now, and could be almost as much money as we want to expend, because it'd be a lot of truckloads to take the whole thing down. But from the one company, we could do it for less than $6,000, a little more than $5,000. I was hoping that it would be a lower amount. But it was not, that they would just take the compost, move all of the leaves back, and we'd at least end up with more space. Next year, we could look at budgeting for more of an ongoing system. So I wanted to see
If
if,
it's say $5,000 to $6,000 for removal of these right now.
yes. For removing all of the compost from the leaves and then taking the leaf pile and moving it all further back from where it is, so there's more space. And that would be $5,000 to $6,000.
Wow.
Too bad we couldn't offer it to the township residents to come get their compost.
Oh, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
We could, have a little bit of a logistical issue in that, it depends. You're gonna need equipment,
Right.
most likely, unless you want to send people in there with buckets and shovels. I'm fine with that. If someone wants to take compost out of there, we're looking to get rid of it.
I just locking it up.
Give it a certain time frame.
Leaf compost
Come
is
get
full of
compost. Bring your truck, bring
Can
your
you say
truck.
that again?
I'm just sorry, leaf compost is full of acid.
Can be, yeah. If it's the oak especially, oak's less.
Right, so I don't know if anyone wants it. And then the thing is, the fresh leaves are in front where you would access the compost from. And so what a company would do is they'd have to move all of that. Then they would take all of the compost out, then take all of the leaves and push it way back in to create space. And so it's not necessarily a simple thing.
Any ideas on
That's
We're options.
Exactly. We have an idea.
that? Well, I'd like to hear it.
Ask the fire department if they'd like to fight it.
It's illegal to burn leaves in the state of Michigan.
And even the brush pile out there, we don't burn anymore. You know, we have to allocate firefighters to watch that. There were complaints apparently from
Alan,
some
you
neighboring
told me a few
properties.
years ago we could do that.
You can burn brush, you cannot burn leaves.
As long as you got a hot dog rest it.
Never burn my leaves.
The township party out at the leaf pile.
Because you were at my house.
Yes,
and
you can, if you have a tree limb that falls and it has
No,
leaves
no,
on it,
and
you are
I was
perfectly
telling
fine.
you that I'm the one that's gonna call to complain about people burning those leaves, and you said, we can do that in Michigan now.
No, you can't.
That's
can
what
only
you
burn
told me.
brush. No, ma'am, I did not. I've never said that. No, brush. I'll send you all the paper that says it.
No, that's
You can burn anything that is fallen from the tree. Tree falls, you can do that. You cannot put leaves into a pile and burn them. If it is, it's actually against the state law. It's a law enforcement thing, not a fire department thing. That's the confusion that people don't understand. I have no control over it. The state does. They don't come after us. They can't, we can't do anything with it, even if it's a fire. Police.
So we're not setting a giant pile of leaves on fire.
And then,
Some taxes on it.
Brush is in a different pile.
So I'll think about it, putting that one in there. Next, with parks is kind of general, we went over that a bit. The lakes, so just a small update on that. We're supposed to, I've talked to Bob Lucas, the head of the county parks on this a few times. And as far as the other lakes, North Lake, Middle Lake, and West Lake, the dredging companies in Whitehall, Montague, Muskegon, and Grand Haven aren't even interested in giving us the numbers. Even if we weren't going to do it, it'd be nice to have numbers.
Yeah, why would they give us numbers?
What about H&H area, or whatever, landscaping that was out doing Peterman's?
I don't know, I didn't contact them.
And they were a good
Oh, the
100
one-
feet more.
But wasn't that the one that people were reporting
Yeah.
to Eagle for not having the
And they
Eagle
never,
permits?
they never.
I'm just wondering why that if H&H can do that on Peterman's property, not be in trouble with the DNR, why we can't dredge out
Well, they wouldn't be in trouble with the DNR, they'd be in trouble with Eagles.
Eagle?
Yeah, and so in those permits, and like on Twin Lake, the county would have to pull the permits because it's county land. And then the permits can take a while. So like the supervisor in Lakeland, she's been working on the park in Bear Lake. And it's a 6-year project so far. The first 3 years were on land, and the next 3 years we're waiting for an Eagle permit for the boat launch.
That's great.
So, yeah, so once you cross the water line, it gets more complex and stuff.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, it's like, it's so shallow in some of these lakes. When you got, to have my truck, I couldn't get my pontoon.
I watched somebody literally pull a truck out of, and if those trucks are going in there, I watched it and videoed it, putting their boat into their county, into the county part of boat launch. And the truck got stuck, and so another truck had to come and pull him out. If that truck went all the way in, we're talking oil, we're talking gas, so that's, I'm not understanding
Why
why.
aren't they taking care of it?
Yeah, and if dredging takes,
An hour or two? Maybe
yeah,
three.
versus losing a truck in there with oil and gas, I don't understand the mentality of why we can't get the county boat launch dredged.
Well, and so the county, the head of the county parks, talked to West Shore and given us some sort of estimate, and they're apparently working on that, but just for the Twin Lake one. And so that's supposed to be, on as well.
So if there's a boat launch, they should look it out.
But I haven't heard anything further on that. The last time I talked to him was probably over a month ago. I haven't seen any more information on
It's really
this.
sad to pay extra money to live on a lake, and then they can't even get their boats in the lake.
Well, and I don't mean this to sound this way, but living on the lake is not even that big, yes, it's a big deal, we've been able to put our own pontoon in for 2 years. But forget that for a minute, as a township, these people are coming in to rent, they rent boats to bring in, you know, and they're spending $1,500 to $30,000 for a week to come and stay and rent a home on Twin Lake, and then they can't get a boat that they're spending money on and spending fuel. So as an economy in town, at the township level, we're not just talking a boat launch, we're talking about an economy at a township level. And it's huge, it's a huge impact. And I know you've gotten some emails from people that are both renters and taxpayers on our list.
Mostly phone calls.
Mostly phone calls. I know a couple of emails because people that I talk to. And so there's a lot of concern about that boat launch. When is it gonna get fixed? And of course, they're always knocking on, you know, hey, when's this gonna happen? And I'm like,
Yeah, and I mean,
And give them a definitive answer.
well, right, yeah, there's certainly no definitive answer. Yeah,
Mr. Supervisor, I will have a conversation with Mr. Lukens and let you know where we're at with that.
please.
yeah, and I'm
He's been
sure,
working on it, and he told me a couple of weeks ago that they were getting close to getting some kind of an answer.
correct. Yeah.
So I'll let you know as soon as we find something out.
Yeah, and so we'll at least have a number to look at, but that's just on the one. And so as of now, as it applies to the ARPA funds, I mean, there's nothing to allocate as far as that goes.
We don't
We
even
don't
know
even have a
what to
number.
do.
Correct, and it could be years to pull the permit. We could be out past 2026 when a project would need to be done,
Right.
right? And then the channels themselves are obviously a mess. You know, it was one of the political fights before us, that if you lose with the drain commissioner, you lose, and if you win with the drain commissioner, you lose. And so so the township won, and now we have lost. And so they probably, to fix them, I mean, they need extensive work, because they have to be dug deeper. They were dug when the water was at a very high level. The sides need to be braced up. The side of the one channel is a swamp. You need an extensive project, which is why the township had to fight with the drain commissioner, because they didn't want her to do a large project there. And so, but for it to hold, you need to put in cement, you need to put in rocks, it would have to be something extensive, it would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. Right, and so the township
The
extended.
lake will rise again.
Right. I mean,
Not enough for that boat launch.
the lakes.
It was that way before we had low water.
And that's a huge extent of it, you know?
And it's not the lowest it's ever been either.
Oh, no.
And I've heard from a lot of people, well, I've heard from a number of people, went on the lakes talking to them on different things at the properties, normally complaints about the township. And there are people that have lived at a lake for 65 years. And they say, you know, people move in, they buy a house on the lake, the water's at whatever it may be. And then 5 years later, it's either gone up or down. It's not like it stayed the same. And then all of those people that are new have these complaints that it's rising or it's falling. And then and then they sell, someone else buys it, you get the same cycle over and over.
My husband can remember then when the water on Twin Lake was almost up to Middle Lake Road.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and people say that they have been able to walk from the huge sandbar out from Peterman's property to the island without.
I heard that, people can walk up there.
And you can't do that yet.
Right, and so it goes up and down. It's to a large extent the reality of the situation.
Get out there and do your rain dances.
They were working this morning. And controlling nature, you know, humans do well at controlling a very large part of nature. But nature wins in the end and is too large to fully control. So that's where the lakes are on that. The Twin Lake sign obviously had the plants ripped out so they're not blocking the lights. When we could have some of the paint touched up on that. Do people want a more extensive project done on that sign? Do we want to pull it out of ARPA funds? Do we kind of want to fill that lower section just in with rock and maybe touch up a little bit of the paint and call the sign good?
Get some quotes on it and make a judgment about it. I mean, we need to know more, I think, make it look good and presentable, of course.
Who's done it?
Is there
Yeah, there is.
Well, there's lights there. And so, well, right, I mean, which extent do we want to do depends on that. We're looking at like completely like redoing the thing, replacing the sign. We want, I mean, I can get
Electronic
quotes on that.
sign's gonna be like 25,000.
Right, it's gonna be expensive, or we can just, you know, kind of make the rocks nice, touch up some of the paint.
What do you have stuff like?
Mostly internally, that's what I've been planning on, you know, so far.
Yeah.
So-
Keep it simple.
And we have at Oakland Cemetery on Russell Road, that well or pump is not working now, which is, you know, ironic since we just got the one at Beagle replaced and up and going. And so that, well, the first company that I contacted, they're a month out before they can see it. So I contacted another company, and I know a lot of that stuff is backed up, and even once we get it looked at, if they have to order things, which I'm assuming that they probably will, a lot of times that type of stuff is months out now. And so it's very unfortunate. When the pump broke at Beagle, I said, at least it's not a cemetery. And now we have a cemetery. And so I'm working on that. If I can get quotes and time and stuff like that, I can include it in ARPA funds. If not, we need to pull it out of the budget and other funds anyways, because we have to work on getting that water going as soon as possible, which may be months.
For that, we're gonna have to probably use other
Yeah, because we didn't specifically budget for 2 wells going out. Storage for files, and we talked about this a little bit with, do we want to modify the building to some extent. I was talking more with Christie about it, you know, and we have storage out back and storage in this building for files, and obviously the filing cabinets are lining the halls, and it's pretty tight. Now, at that time, we planned on not doing any kind of major extension of the building, that type of thing. But wanted to, since we talked about it again, wanted to bring up, do we want to do some sort of minor extension so that we would have more file storage area on this building somewhere?
And election equipment.
Yeah,
Election
Tracy,
equipment.
we get more and more election equipment gets bigger and bulkier and.
Right, and realistically, with the township approaching 10,000 people, 9,586 over the last census. And so there's probably going to be another precinct added soon, which means more election equipment, because right now we're at 4, so we'll probably be at 5 within the next few years, I guess.
Right, more election equipment. I would also entertain, looking at changing the inside structure where the admin assistants sit. Like Lexi has no space for any file cabinets or, she has very little desk space as it is. And if there was a configuration that could work for that. Because there are some things that I could transfer to her.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, it's trade-offs, like all financial decisions, like all life decisions. It's a trade-off of, do we want to look at allocating money towards that sort of thing, or other things? You know, and I don't want to short the roads, a couple $100,000 this year, a couple $100,000 next year. You know, I want to take care of some of the things that are necessary. You know, road discussion coming up, and things that would honestly be disasters. The organization of the files needs to continue to be improved on because it's rough. You know, it'd be nice to have more space, but it's difficult to tell if it's more of a, if it's a good trade-off or not. It's difficult to tell.
So you're proposing building onto this building? Or are you talking about a storage area to put things that we're not using every day?
It would have to be room controlled, I mean, temperature controlled.
The election
Oh, yeah.
machines need to stay.
Right, yeah, you would want them in an extreme heater cold, I get that.
So there's, you know, we just have been, I guess, trying to spitball and, you know, right.
And it, I mean, it was brought up, I can't remember who mentioned it, but the building that isn't being used at Beagle Field could end up being like a different storage location for things that could be moved there. You know, I don't know if that's.
Is that temperature control?
Yeah, the election equipment could go out there, and that's
Okay,
that's
so
what
you're
we're
talking
installing.
about the papers and.
Potentially.
There's a lot of old, archival, you know, books that we should take care of better. They're out in the maintenance.
There are. Yeah, well, and that's what, before I brought up digitizing, but just for that one building, or that one room out in maintenance with all the things there, my quotes range from $30,000 to $50,000 to digitize that room. Some stuff you have to keep forever. Some things have an expiration, there's a retention schedule. And so it's quite a bit. Another route to go on that, which I think would be decent, is maybe to have employees at certain times of the year, as the busyness is fluctuating, get a nice scanner where we could even scan in big things like that, and start digitizing internally, buy some software that reads it, and maybe do it more internally, might be more cost effective. It'll take longer, it might occur over years, but that might be reasonable. Yeah, there's a lot there. All right, any questions, thoughts, ideas, comments, concerns on that? No. Cell tower. Now, this might be a moot point at this point, but a cell tower company, different than the one that is currently leases from the township, had sent out mailers to people in the area. The township ended up getting one. And so they have a proposed contract. There's two issues basically that come up with it. One is that they'd have to show that their equipment can't go on the tower that's already there, according to our zoning. And two is that in their original financial proposal, they had not included an increase from year to year in any version of any percent. It was for 30 years originally proposed that. And I had inquired about having some sort of percentage increase as well, and have not heard back from them since then. And so they might have gotten someone else that wasn't concerned with inflation in that aspect over 30 years. And so, which is fine, I don't feel like the township needs to necessarily own stuff like that. But if this company gets back to me and they want to lease this parcel next to another cell tower and build their stuff, is anyone opposed to that, or do we want to pursue that if it's an option? It might not be.
We're talking about cost of us out, or are we talking about bringing money in?
The township would bring money in. They're going to pay someone to lease some property somewhere and build a cell tower.
When that comes up, can you bring that to the board, or do we have time?
Well, it depends. That's, we'll have to approve it. The board would have to approve it if it went through. But if people are opposed to it because they're like, well, let a private citizen end up living on their land no matter what, I'm completely fine with that. If they decide that the township is the best property to pursue, I'm fine with that as well. I don't know if anyone else would have other opinions.
It's kind of where I am with that.
Yeah.
If it's some private property, I think we could be a little upset. Next door, that's something that we need to bring.
Well, the parcel that they're proposing is directly next to the other parcel with the cell tower. And so it wouldn't, if that all went through in that way, it wouldn't change. You already have a large structure there.
So there'll be two cell towers right next to each other?
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought it might be somewhere else in the township.
I like the pine tree.
All right, and that,
I didn't see those options.
that's in the reference packet.
It's in the second.
Well, then I don't print, but you get the email out and it's posted on the website. That's the full proposal. Next, we have the township hall roof. And so Lori had started inquiring on the roof because it's not in great shape. And we have air conditioners looked at, which we have 3 or 4 that work. And so Steve's room doesn't get air conditioning, but the rest of the township hall gets air conditioning at this point. And the roof is not in great shape. And I was really hoping that this would come back, that they'd be like, yeah, we'll coat it for you and it'll last for a number of years longer. And they said that their recommendation, at least, I just got the loan quote, but they didn't think that was a great idea. They thought it might extend the roof a couple more years, but they think we're getting close to getting leaks, which will probably occur in the winter. And the proposal is $60,000. Do you know the roof on there?
We got 4 quotes when we did our house. We had one for 46, one for 38, 27, and 11.
Yeah.
We went with 11, obviously, and we've had no problems at all. So one quote at $60,000 is
really high.
Might want to shop around.
Quotes.
Well, that's why it's a discussion item.
Right,
Yeah.
Right,
definitely, definitely need more quotes.
We need to shop around.
Yeah, so we want to pursue it. Where do we want to budget for the replacement for next year, just in the regular budget? Is this one of the things we want to consider for the ARPA funds?
I think we might want to do it. Let's get some more quotes first before we start making big decisions on this stuff.
How, do you have leaks currently right now? How
I don't
much of an
believe
emergency
so.
situation are we talking?
Don't believe there are current leaks.
Okay.
Well, I mean, there are spots in the township where you can see water damage that's come through before, some of the time.
With the
they're
current,
staying and
with
stuff.
the current roof?
As far as I know, I don't know when the water stains are exactly from. In my
Have
office,
dates
there's
written
one
on?
stain in the corner.
We haven't noticed anything from today's downpour.
That's good.
That's good news. Definitely. Anybody local, it'd be nice to have somebody in Dalton Township, we may do a thing in Dalton.
I'm not sure.
I've done a lot of
Probably.
but.
Yeah, it's a flat roof, and there was at one point another roof put on, so there's two of them up there, which is part of the higher cost because it would be on, it'll on a third roof. And so they're ripping the two flat roofs off and replacing.
That's why the.
That makes it more sense, because I was like, I'd do it for,
Half that.
well,
I'll pursue more quotes on that, and obviously we'll have to budget in some.
I'd like to see some more quotes and then also to possibly entertain ARPA, but, I mean, if it's something that, if you start seeing leaks or we know that there's problems up there, then we have to do something. Excavate it too.
Right, and it's one of those situations that, hopefully it makes it through this winter. We didn't call them because we had a leak, we called them because we wanted to see how long it would last. And said, you might get a couple more years out of it.
Here we are. Yeah.
Next, we have the vacation policy. And so this was brought up early of when I was in last year. And so it's one of those things that needs to be cleared up, but it's deceptively complex, right? It seems like it should be just simple to adjust. And we talked about it a little bit before of allowing a payout for the amount of vacation that isn't allowed to roll over, and then doing an objective number of vacation days for the part-time and seasonal, and those are good. But there are a lot of other questions with that, a bunch of which I wrote in here, and some of which I wrote down in the last couple of days as I was thinking about it more. And so, on this, do we want to limit the amount of time that can be paid out to encourage using vacation time? And so there's different ways that I've seen in policies to limit that. One way is you can say you only get paid out by X amount of time, right? You have 1 week we'll pay out, or 2 weeks we'll pay out, or whatever it may be. The other way is to say whatever we're paying out that rolls over and then goes above the rollover, that amount is being paid out at 3/4 or a half of what you normally would have gotten paid. And so do we want to end up paying out the full amount that won't roll over? Do we want to limit it in some way?
So right now, what do you have for rollover? What's the, I didn't see what this is.
The rollover amount for vacation is 40 hours.
40 hours. So you can roll, so you have up to 40 hours, you can't go above that. But you can roll over 40 hours.
You can roll over 40 hours.
That's the
I mean,
max.
that's 1 week. And so everything above that, if you get a few years in, you're getting more than that a year.
What does it say? Yeah, this is not a lot.
For instance, the county, you can roll over 40 days. Wow. Right, so
What's the payout on
more
that?
extension.
Do they pay the full?
No, you can roll over and keep 40 days. The amount going over that they pay out, I can't remember offhand, one of the policies I looked at, they pay out like, 3/4. But I might have taken that from the city instead of the county, that they pay out at
I thought the county was 50%.
Might be.
When you-
Might be 50%, might be 75%, the city might be 75%.
That's when you leave, though, you get
Right.
paid out the 3/4. You don't get paid out, if you have 80 days, you can roll over 40, you don't get paid out your other 40. You can roll over 40, and then if you were to leave, then it's whatever and say you didn't use any, it's your current year's time plus the 40 that you were able to roll over, you would just lose the other.
It can be set up in that way. Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
That's how
that's,
the county does it, I don't.
that's one of the options, is we could just, extend, the amount of time you're rolling over. The county used to allow rollover of 80 days. Now they changed that in 2008, so now it's 40 days. Or we could adjust that and we could decide.
I think we could also adjust that by years of service. If you have, let's say, 10, 15 years in it, and you decide to retire, you got 40 hours, you should be fully vested. Take it with you if you don't use it. You know, say like incremental, you know, 2 years, 2%, 5 years.
Chief,
Whatever,
what's
you're
your
37 and a half weeks of vacation right now.
37.5 weeks?
Take tomorrow off.
Yeah.
Holiday, take tomorrow off, holiday.
If you follow the current policy, I would leave tomorrow, you would owe me 37 and a half weeks of salary. I've never taken a vacation since I've taken 12 years.
See, you're in the back of my mind when I was looking
So
over this.
that's the reason we need to look at this, is you need to look at it from the long-term standpoint.
Right.
Correct.
And it was my suggestion that salary employees don't get a vacation, because you're paying me whether I'm here or not.
Right.
And salary employees, it should be for hourly. True.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff like this. I would like to resolve these things so I can actually write something up. But there's a lot of variables here.
But there should be a cap though, too. Once you get to a certain limit, that's it. You don't, you use or lose it, you don't accrue no more.
Right.
That's it. That's how it is with the state.
Right. And so, well, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff here. So the way the policy is written up as it is now, it's basically a type of hourly based system. And previously we had Alan on salary, but now we have Steve on salary too, so it's going to affect him. And so we could separate of having this policy for hourly employees and then having the salaried employees where they get paid for like a bonus for years of service in some aspect and separating them. Or you could have them combined like this where they're rolling over time and a certain amount gets paid out, but if they don't use a certain amount, that also just gets cut off.
Yeah, just cap them out.
Right? Because if you take a salary employee and they take a week of vacation, that pays the same amount as the salary they would have gotten. You know, it's kind of odd. You're not really doing anything.
This is math, not my strength.
Well, it's more of a word.
Sounds like a really bad story
problem that
problem.
leads, yeah, a story problem that leads to a bunch of math problems.
Yeah.
Next, in the state, what they do is like every pay period, you get X number of hours per pay period.
Right, the feds are like that
And
too.
again, it's like 3.4, like the first year. And once you get your first year, and it goes from 2 to 3 year, you're accruing like 4.3. And then every 3 years after that, it's like another 0.3 added to it. And there's a cap. Once you get so to that level, you don't get no more. You use or lose it.
Right.
That's it. You can only roll over, I think it was, 40 hours. So if you're getting 3-4 weeks off in a year, because you got, say, 15 years,
Right.
and you hit that cap, and you don't take a vacation, you're losing that. You can't roll over. You're done. That's it.
And so, I mean, there's a lot here. Do we want to move the salary toward like some type of bonus system rather than the vacation system?
I like that. I like that, so
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
you gotta figure out what the bonus should be.
Yes, yeah, there's a whole aspect with that. And so we want rollover time, obviously. Do we want to change the amount? It's currently at 40 hours. Do we want to change how much is allowed to roll over and still be available?
Well, I'm just gonna throw this out there, no matter what decisions we make, it's not like this is in stone. The next administration could come in and completely change it, I'm assuming.
Right.
So it's not like this is a do or die, but we do need to, I do think it needs to be addressed, so, just.
Well, and there's a lot of decisions here, you know, and I mean, I can draw it up and talk with Christie and Tracy and stuff and get it drawn up in a way that I think is reasonable.
Please.
And then look at an actual conversion.
Some different versions on taking this.
Give us a lunch, ABC. This is a lot of strike outs.
Yeah, there's a lot to look over and make.
Does this go from January to December? Or does it go from our fiscal year?
Well,
Because you have calendar here yet, but, so, we don't end until March 31st, but you're
Right.
saying the calendar year, which is not gonna coincide with,
That's something
That's
else
one of
we
the
have to
issues.
resolve.
So, yeah, it's one of these questions, right? So we could go by calendar year, we could go by fiscal year, or we could go by anniversary year of the employee.
I would think anniversary would make more sense.
And Tracy said that the programs can
Yeah.
track that well and it can work logistically.
Yeah,
Because it's easier to do the anniversary months,
If
because
you come in halfway through the year,
yeah.
Then it gets weird.
yeah,
If you're not
so
going by
anniversary
anniversary.
actually does make a lot more sense.
Yeah, I agree.
And even for seasonal, part-time employees, 3 days a year,
Mhm.
yeah. I think the rest of the year. They get the rest of the year off, exactly. They're seasonal, and so they're getting, yeah. I just question that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was what we discussed before, and I mean, it's just, it was written in such a way that it really didn't work. There was a lot of uncertainty about how many days they would get, and so it'd be nice to have an objective number.
I see what you did
Give
here.
us some options, Jeffrey. A, B, C, and D.
Well, I probably won't write a bunch of different options, but I can write up a version.
and then come back, bring it back to.
Yeah,
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Then we can make a decision.
all right.
I mean, I see a lot of potential.
Yeah, there's a lot there, there's a lot of variability. Next, we're moving on to our second public comments. If anyone wants to speak on anything, Mr. Seer, would you like to come up to the lectern for us?
Oh, you want me to come up there?
Yeah, come up to the lectern.
Just no clicking pens.
Sincere, Muskegon County Commissioner, Twin Lake, Michigan. I got some information back, Bob Lucas sent it to me. It's the soundings that were done by West Shore. I just forwarded that email to you, so you have that information now.
Perfect, I appreciate it.
And just FYI, depth sounding at 75 feet offshore was 3.1 feet deep, so that was 75 feet offshore. They're waiting for an opinion from West Shore regarding the feasibility of a ramp. We haven't got any information back on that yet, but that's the next thing to come. He didn't say how long, so that's it.
Perfect, thank you.
Very much.
Yes, if you'd like to come up.
My name's Kevin McCabe.
Yeah, how's it going? I think I've talked to you and I've emailed with you, but we never actually met in person.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for a response from this.
We can't read it from here, so.
Yeah, there was
What is
a
that?
request, didn't we, there was a request for some type of information. Wasn't
That
it
was
to do with the assessor?
I thought I sent that.
It's to do with the law, which you people don't seem to understand.
Mm-hmm.
My request was under MCL 15.231 ETSEQ, which is the law.
Not all
I
of
emailed
these
it to
trustees have
Yep,
that.
and he forwarded it to me, and
That's what he's supposed to do.
I
And you forgot.
must have a draft
Misplaced it?
of what I was going to send you,
Did
based
Betsy?
on our,
She's new in her position here too.
yeah.
You got it on the 20, you got it on the 22nd. So when did you get it?
22nd of what month, please?
June.
June, okay.
I would have gotten it shortly after, the same day,
Probably the same day.
What is it?
so.
Today's
Clue
11th.
us in, clue the rest of us in, because as a
We
trustee.
don't know.
It has to do with the assessor's
Just a
notification and what we, I guess, our accommodations, is that what you're ultimately after?
Yeah, essentially.
So we have it on our website, and the county has the assessors on their website and their
Is this your
emails.
response then?
I will give you a official response in writing.
You would?
Yes, absolutely.
Can I see
There
that?
you go.
Can I see that?
You've never seen it?
No.
No, you know what you're talking
Trustee,
about.
once a month,
We're
trustee.
talking about.
It's funny, right? That people,
Exactly.
well, it's interesting
Yeah.
that people attempt to accuse me of hiding stuff as I keep releasing ridiculous amounts of information. I have no problem with accusations and stuff. I find them interesting, entertaining in some way. And so, no, I can include information in board packets, and we can publish it on the website, we can make Facebook posts, videos, whatever you want. We can do an interview, we can do a debate, we can set up a video debate.
I wasn't clear on what piece you were digging at that we're not doing that you want us to do.
STC changed all the rules because they had too many assessors that were like, your former assessor, what was his name?
The last one was Wes.
Wesley, yeah. Wesley, he liked to peek in windows, people better watch out for him.
What?
And,
He's not here.
do all kinds of illegal stuff, you know, and if he didn't like you, he kind of picking his daisies, I like you not type thing. That's the way he was assessing. And that's why he's not here anymore.
But that's untrue, that's 100% a lie.
Oh.
That's all right, I encounter a lot of lies.
We do have a timer.
So,
I have no problem, in the last public comment, for these to be longer and be discussions, you know.
I just tried to.
So, but I appreciate not commenting in the first public comments, you know, I like the wild stuff to happen in the second.
related to the agenda.
Correct, yep. So, no, but Wes didn't even leave at my discretion, right? We have a contract with the county for it, and the assessor in the city had left, and then he got pulled down to that.
Okay.
Yeah. The truth, I know it hits hard, it's rough.
Thing is, I don't really. Anyway,
That is the information that I know, so maybe
you
you
intend to respond to that or no?
What exactly do you
What is the question?
think you're
What are we
sticking us
talking
on?
about?
Yeah, it's not very clear.
This is not
Not at all.
clear. I'm looking at this,
You could ask for
are you-
more information if you'd like.
I'm asking you.
You're
So
standing.
section 10,
She's required to ask
What,
in writing.
okay, we will get it taken
Section
care
10
of tomorrow.
pertains to a revised state law. STC revised their policies that you now have to provide public access to your assessing department and actually document 4 different, if you go online and Google that up, you have to have 4 accesses that they demand that you provide for the public. See, the assessing department likes to say secret. They don't want people to see their stuff, because that way taxpayers can compare against other taxpayers and see, well, she's getting cheated, and look at this, like the guy that's got a swimming pool over here that I know of, that is only paying $100, and it's rated as a 402, a vacant land. He's got a swimming pool on it.
So we have three
When I find that
meetings
stuff,
a
then I
year.
bring it up, and next thing you know, somebody's dialing 911.
We have,
Why you're not doing it now?
dial 911 for what?
Well, that's why every time I come in here, that's what everybody wants to do with that one.
Oh, yeah. But it's a common logical error to be generalization, it's called. Yeah.
is it my turn now?
Okay.
So we have
It's
three,
your business.
okay. If you're gonna keep interrupting me, then,
Okay, go
then
ahead.
I won't answer.
No,
we-
this is not your
Okay.
answer. Your answer has MCL
Public comments, you can make a comment.
15.1,
That's it.
321,
That's a comment.
SEQ.
It's not the second.
That's the procedure, not
Great.
today. You have 5 days from the day you received it. That's the law.
Great, thank you.
And I even provided you a copy of it, the MCL, whatever it is down there, on the bottom, to respond in accordance with that law. So,
Thank you for
So you just want Tracy to email you? You want Tracy to email you? Right?
yeah, whatever, yeah. Say hello.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
Feel free to reach out
Don't go around the
anytime.
house and throw tomatoes out here, though.
Karen Fowler, 2769 Middle Lake Road. This is concerning, on Saturday morning, I visit the cemetery very often to take care of plots at the cemetery. And on Saturday morning, I went to the cemetery to the plot of a relative who was going to be buried on Saturday at 1 o'clock. When I got up there, I could see that there was no hole for the internment. So I called my other relative who was more directly involved and told her, and she said, well, maybe they'll be there by 1 o'clock. Because she said her brother, they came up the day that he was going to be put into for the internment. Well, so we arrived, the honor guard is there, ready for the ceremony, and about 50 people, and there's no holdup. Now, who is the cemetery coordinator? I went home then and got out because I just bought a plot there, and you know, you pay for all of this. And I went home and so who is the cemetery coordinator of the township?
We don't have one specifically designated with the change.
Is this what the sexton used to be?
Correct.
Okay,
It's a
we do
symbol.
not have a sexton that digs the,
So the township wasn't digging the holes before. We are a West Michigan burial vault. Right?
oh, well,
But-
see, we used to have our own sexton
Right.
because they did that for me before.
Right.
Larry Furman was our sexton.
And they still arrange it, right? Jess was doing it before she left. When she left, then Lori was doing it. And then in the transfer, like Christie and administrative assistants, it covered a little bit. It naturally falls under the clerk's office.
So you hire someone outside the township to do this then?
For the digging of the holes, but the
Okay.
coordinating of the sales and talking to the burial company, we do internally. And so Tracy's working on taking that over.
Okay, so
And there's,
can you tell me why that grave was not ready?
I believe it's a mistake.
yeah, there was concern that they were going to be in the wrong place, and I was planning to go out and look. This was something that was started before I started, so I was going to go look and make sure that they were in the right places. I guess I assumed that everything else was set and didn't.
Is it
I made a
against the law to
mistake.
dig your own grave, to make the hole in our?
I do not know.
Huh?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either. Well, the grandkids ended up digging the hole for the internment. So I just couldn't believe it.
And I've written down some things that I plan to change and make sure that, you know, whoever's having ceremonies.
Well, when you've got the honor
will
guard
have
there and
my-
50 people, that was unacceptable.
And that they will all have my personal cell phone number for any items that are going on out there.
So I know that this person had this in arrangement for quite a long time. So, anyway.
Yes, yeah, that is quite bad, you know, and I mean, the emotions are always running high when you're dealing with cemeteries in any aspect, so completely understandable being quite upset about that.
Well, the reason that I went home and looked up because this is gonna happen to me. I mean, I'm gonna, you know.
You're gonna be going in there.
Yeah, I'm going in there. And it's gonna be done, and it's probably gonna be done by my children, and so I just wanna
Right.
make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Right.
Is there any way to refund, it is unacceptable, is there any way to refund any finances that they paid for that, to have the amount, that the grandkids are digging the hole?
I'm not sure that, I would have to check to see
Like,
if
I
it was
think that's-
billed in the first
Oh,
place.
Jesus.
I know mine has
But I
been
will.
billed, because I just did this a couple of months ago, and I know that they
Burial
told
as well?
me, that I pay for that to the funeral home, and then the town, then they pay the township. So I mean,
Oh.
I'm paying for it.
But not to us, you're paying,
I
You're
paid, but then
Gotcha.
when they have to do it, you will get the money.
gotcha.
Right.
I know,
So
I
check on that with.
just did it, so I know that that's the way it is.
So I
So
will
then
check
it'll have
on
to be
that.
checked on
Yeah.
with the company. to see if it was set up like that, or if it just hasn't been billed, and there can be a version of the discount, or there can be the refund.
Family should be
previously billed.
huge holidays in the township.
Yeah,
Can't be just,
I'm so sorry that that happened.
We'll tighten that
It
up.
was completely
So
unacceptable.
there's no apologies. As a widow, myself, 8 years ago. I'm very sorry.
Well, it wasn't my parents, but it was my my cousin's parents.
But we understand loss,
Yeah,
and I'm just very sorry.
thank you.
All right, next.
I went, I'm sorry, Marilyn Tucker, 2747 Lake Shore. I went on the website today to find the agenda for tonight, and all I could find was a reference packet. I couldn't find the agenda. I also went on the website altogether, and still, so maybe sometime somebody can show me where it is, because I couldn't find it.
Yeah, I can show you after the meeting. And the website is clunky, right? It's not a great website. Is there anyone that likes the website?
No.
it's always been under the resident packet, and this time it was a resident packet, and you had like the last two discussion items in Jeffrey's reading list, and you had to click on the board packet, because I had the same issue.
Okay.
And I had to click on the board packet to
Okay,
get
thank you.
the actual agenda and all of the
Well,
listings.
next time I'll just ask you.
There you go, Marilyn.
In the website overall, we're working on getting the ordinances put in and where we can do agendas and packets and meeting minutes on Municode, which is merging with Civics Plus, so it seems to be a little delayed. But normally used by municipalities, commonly used, so better access for those things. And I want to get all of that working and running before I then redo the website. But I plan on redoing both of those so things work better.
Robin Lindsay, 2795 Middle Lake Road.
I'm sorry, what was your last name?
Lindsay. Back to the boat launch, you know, we've lived here for 10 years, and the water's been high, and now the water's low, but the boat launch has always been crap. It's never been good, and I think at this point, because we were involved with launching boats for the fireworks and had massive issues, luckily a good Samaritan come along and winched one of our trucks out of the lake. I just think that there's got to be a way. The county charges people to use that launch, and I don't see how they can in good conscience continue charging people, because I know when you talk to the people at the park, I mean, it's a common thing for tow trucks and people doing damage to their vehicles, damage to their boats, damage to their trailers because of the condition the boat launch is in, and I don't understand why somebody can't put a stop to the fee that they're charging and at least post that, you know, the launch is not exactly in the best shape and use at your own risk.
They would claim that they're only responsible up to the water.
Oh, I know, but they charge you either way. They charge you, and the county's getting that money, and nobody's using the boat launch to use the dirt. They're using it to get into the water.
Exactly, and it's not even the level of the water so much.
No, it
as
has
is-
nothing to do with the level of
it's
the water.
this. It's when you go out, I mean, when we launch our wave runners, it doesn't take much to get them to float. The problem is that I go from my knees to here.
There's holes, huge
Yes,
holes.
because people have gotten caught in
Got
it,
stuck.
and so they've got these, and you can't see that when you see the flat water.
Yeah, we'd be glad to show you where the holes are. Vance has fallen in there a couple times.
I've fallen in a couple times just trying to get my pontoon launched.
And we, like I said, it's.
I just don't understand I don't understand why it can't just be flat, dredged. I don't understand what the big deal is. Losing a truck in there and the oil and the gas.
Way more damage to the environment
Beating a dead horse here, but
than sand, sorry.
I
It's
don't
all washed.
understand. Do we, I don't wanna say what I'm saying.
Good, what else?
Thank you, Robin.
Nothing else? All right, any final comments from the board?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and second to adjourn, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Yeah.